Choosing a tech stack in 2024 is a difficult decision. You ask this question on Twitter or Reddit, you're going to get hundreds of comments of people telling you to use something that hasn't been maintained in 5 years, or PHP devs telling you just to get good. But today that changes. I'm going to be telling you about the stack that I've been using for all my personal projects, why it makes me feel so productive, and how if you stick to this stack, I guarantee you can start building some incredible websites today. Let's get straight into it. The first step in creating your new website, and don't click off the video, isn't writing code. Especially if you're self-taught or in college trying to put projects on your resume, you have to wear all the hats in the development process. In the real world, you'll probably have a designer who creates the website design, gives you colors, fonts, everything like that, and then you're free to code. But we're not there just yet. We will be, but not yet. So we must do all this work on our own. I use Figma to create mockups and lay out different aspects of my website. I also write down some important design details such as padding for specific elements, how large I want my different headers to be, and more. You don't need to become an expert in Figma, and it probably isn't a good use of your time to become an expert, but by creating your layout now, you save so much time in development because you don't have to think about those design decisions. Those decisions were already made earlier. You just have to write the code. Two quick design tools I also use is this website called Coolors, and you can generate random color palettes until you find one that you like. If you have a color that you know you want to use, you can put it into the search bar and find a color palette that goes with it. The other tool is a Chrome extension called What Font, and after you add this to your browser, you can go to a page that you like and see the font that they're using. Just activate it and click on the piece of text. You can see the font size, font weight, everything like that. Then you can implement that same style. Just remember that some fonts you have to pay for as they're restricted behind a license, but you can find similar fonts on Adobe Fonts or on Google Fonts as well. Alright, so now we need to start setting up our project, and for that we're going to use React with next.js. Next.js is the most popular React framework, and they have a lot of really amazing features such as being SEO friendly, server-side rendering, server components, and more. Even if these terms don't mean too much to you yet, there's a reason that it's the most popular framework. And you might hear people bring up things like Remix.js, you might hear about Astro, and a bunch of others, and while those are some great tools, React is the most popular library, and Next.js is the most popular framework for it. I'm not saying that the most popular is necessarily the best, but there are more positions using these tools compared to the competition. So if you are trying to find a job, this stack sets you up for success. Now, if you know React decently, you can probably start messing around with Next.js earlier than you would imagine, but Next.js is just React with more tools, so don't be afraid to hop right in. Even if you're feeling some imposter syndrome, I'm sure you'll do okay. And I have been able to do all of my API handlers and routes using Next.js's server actions, which has been incredible, so I don't need to spend time booting up an Express server or something like that just to build out my APIs. And that's one of the greatest things about using Next.js in this stack. Moving on to our database, I've consistently been using Supabase to host a Postgres database, and it's honestly the easiest way to get started that I've ever used. You just make an account with your GitHub, create a new project on Supabase, and then follow along with the docs to connect it to your project. Honestly, even as a beginner to this, you should be able to go through the docs. They're super readable, and it'll help you to easily connect it to your project. On Supabase, you can view your tables, modify them, and they also have some cool things like auth that you can look into as well if you want to add that to your project. They have a pretty generous free tier allowing unlimited API requests, 50,000 monthly active users, and 500 megabytes of database space, and that should be more than enough for a project that you're making just to put on your portfolio. But if you do happen to make the next big thing, you can always upgrade your tier and pay to expand based on the needs of your database. So we have our Next.js app and we have our Supabase database. And to connect to our database, we're going to use an ORM called Prisma. With Prisma, you create models of your data. So if you have a post, for example, you might make a model that represents that post. A post might have a title that's a string or a rating that's an int, and other details. Then, if you want to create a post, you can use built-in Prisma methods to create that new post in your Next.js app. It looks something like this. Where here I have a code snippet that has a title, and that's a string. I also have code, which is also a string, and other parts to my model as well. Prisma has methods for finding, updating, deleting, basically all your basic CRUD functions. You can even write raw SQL if you want to, which is nice, but you should rarely ever have to do this. Prisma is built on TypeScript, and they actually generate types based on the models you created to ensure your code is all type safe, which is a really nice benefit to using Prisma. Speaking of being type safe, our next part of the stack is the actual code that we will write. TypeScript is used so developers can catch potential bugs and errors before pushing their code out to production. This can catch errors such as passing in a string when you need an int, leaving something undefined when it's mandatory, and more. It's not something your users will necessarily recognize by using your site, but it will allow you to fix bugs and issues early and provide a smoother experience to your users in the end. You can use regular JavaScript with this stack if that's what you're comfortable with, but I highly recommend giving TypeScript a try. And with every project you use it, you'll get better and better, and you'll be able to reap the rewards of adding type safety to your projects. Alright, so now we're in our next.js app, we've connected our database and have started to create some TSX components, but we can't ship an unstyled website, and that's where Tailwind CSS comes in. I can honestly say I don't see myself ever starting a side project without Tailwind CSS again. It's that good. Some people are very passionate against it because it makes your JSX get a little busy with all of the classes, but I promise you, it's still readable and it gets you going so much faster than with standard CSS. It's easy to learn, pull it up on a second monitor or another tab if you have one, and when you need to know something, just go on the Tailwind docs, type it in, and sooner or later you'll have it all memorized and you'll be good to go. You also rarely have to worry about CSS overwriting other parts of your CSS and messing with your styles, as you can simply style a component with Tailwind and reuse that component anywhere in your app and have it styled the same way every time. Lastly, you're going to need a place to host this website. You should have already connected this to a GitHub repo, but if you haven't, make sure to push your code to GitHub. Next.js is made by the company Versel, and it's the easiest way to host your Next.js app. Simply go to Versel, link it to your GitHub repo, and Next.js will automatically deploy it to a Versel domain. Every time you commit new code to production, Versel will automatically redeploy your website with the new code. By the way, if you're using TypeScript, double check that your code is free of type errors. If there are any type errors in your code, Versel will not build your site and the new code won't be deployed. You can easily add a custom domain on Versel if you have one, see logs of errors and requests made on your website, and then you can also have your own speed analytics and other checkers that you can npm install to your repo and see that data as well. So to recap, the tech stack I'm using in 2024 is a Next.js app using a Prisma ORM to connect to a Supabase Postgres database. I'm styling my components with Tailwind CSS and deploying my app to Versel. I'm also designing and mocking up this site in Figma. You can always add more to this stack, but it's simple, effective, and easy to get going by using it. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any tools or suggestions that you want to add to this tech stack, or you think that other people could learn from, make sure to drop it in the comments below. Otherwise, leave a like, subscribe, and have a great day.